Okay, Tracy, I just sent you the link.
Okay, yeah, it just came through.
Okay, I just talked to Dr. Van. He's hopping on.
Good deal. He's right on time.
Okay, you good to go.
All right. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Please note any comments by the public are welcome and can be emailed to publiccomment@lsbme.la.gov. Jacinda, please confirm you verified the identity of all tele and video conference participants.
Yes, sir.
Is the sound clear and audible to the public and those on the tele and video conference?
Yes, it is.
All additions to the executive or public agenda must be made presently, as we will no longer make additions to the agenda after the close of the public session. Diana, would you do a roll call, please?
Okay, Sheila Guidry,
Here.
Michael Nolan.
Here.
All right, I'm present. Brett Stafford,
Present.
Raymond Peasany,
Present.
Dr. Hugo. Not yet, but I thought he was looking forward to joining. And then no replacement for Beth Hamilton yet?
No.
Okay. That's our members.
All right, we have a quorum, so we'll continue with the meeting. All right. Is there any public comment at this time?
No.
All righty, we'll move on to old business, approval of the minutes of the February 26, 2023 meeting. Has everybody had a chance to review those minutes prior to the this meeting? At this time, I would entertain a motion for someone to accept the minutes as presented.
I motion.
Motion, do I have a second? It looked like Brett's trying to, but you're on mute.
Second, you didn't pick me up. Can you hear me?
All right, yes. Brett's second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Is there any public comment?
Will the gentleman to
No public comment.
Okay, thank you. Revisions to the rules and regs. We've met a few challenges working on the rules and regs. We lost one committee member. We have another committee member that's been out on FLMA with her family and herself that's on the committee. So I hope by next meeting we will have had a meeting to work on this, but we'll continue to see how that folds out in the upcoming months or whatever. Is there any public comment?
No, and I tell you what, we'll let you know if there's public comment, so you don't have to ask every time, but the only time you do need to ask is between a motion and a vote.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Number 3, follow up on the respiratory therapy assistant and student worker role. are we gonna discuss that further down on the agenda during executive session? Ms. Wilton? Did I see that on the agenda somewhere else, or did they take that off?
I am not 100% sure.
On the first agenda that I was sent, it had it on there that it was gonna be an executive session, but it looks
Okay.
like this agenda has changed.
Raymond, I think the discussion was, can they be paid?
The
Yeah.
licensure and certification is under the executive session. It looks like
Okay.
that's what you put it.
So are we gonna discuss it at that time, or we're gonna open it up now?
I think the issue is you're gonna have to have legal advice, and that's what we normally do in executive session.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the follow-up on the Respiratory Care Advisory Committee members. Dr. Van, I've reached out to the boards and commission and have not had a return phone call on probably 3 different occasions. Is there any assistance that you can help us? Anyone that you know over there that I can contact or you can contact?
Yeah, I can call boards and commissions. First of all, is she a slotted role? Beth's position, is it a slotted role? Do you remember?
Yes, she was chosen from the list that was submitted by the LSRC. And she is one of the 6 respiratory care members chosen by the governor.
So she's nominated by LARC
LSRC. Mm-hmm.
and the governor appoints. Okay, so let me ask this. Do you have the nominations?
The 2 people that were nominated and they received their packets last year was Blake Nolan from Monroe, Louisiana, and he was to fill a vacancy of Miss Hamilton. And then the public person that's out there
Whoa.
is
Usually the governor likes 3 nominations. All right, let me say this. Previous governors, and I can't comment about this one, but I'll check with the new person, like 3 nominations from each nominating body. And they would make the appointment. So do we have 3 nominations for LARC?
well, my question is, these were already submitted last year. There's Mr. Nolan was selected by the governor to serve, and he was waiting for the Senate to approve. All the paperwork was submitted back.
Okay, well, let me say this to you. So if he was appointed by the governor, he could be serving already, number one. And if they didn't approve him at the Senate, we would get him off. But I'll check into that to see what's going on, and I'll see about the senatorial approval. I'll check on that probably today or tomorrow for you.
Thank you, sir.
So that's going to be from the LARC.
LSRC.
I'm sorry, say again?
LSRC, Louisiana Society for Respiratory Care.
Okay, LSRC, good enough.
Yes, sir.
All right, so then the next question I have for you is the next person you said was nominated or wants to be nominated came from where? Public body?
Public body.
And that was a nominee that was made or was appointed by the governor already?
Yes.
Who was that?
His name was James Lanahan, Lanoha.
JAMES?
Yes, sir.
And spell that last name again?
Lanoha.
Okay, LANOHA. And you said the governor did appoint him and he's waiting for
Yes.
senatorial approval?
Yes, sir. Those were both Governor Edwards's appointments.
All right, I'll look into that today or tomorrow and I'll get back to y'all. Because again, I don't know why it didn't happen, but again, And a lot of times when there's turmoil in those offices that change, things get missed, and so we'll try and fix that for you as soon as we can.
Thank you, doctor. We appreciate that.
Thank you for giving me all the information to follow up on it.
All right. Is there any other old business anybody would like to discuss? Is there any public comment at this time?
No.
All right, we'll move on to new business, licensing personnel, Phyllis Johnson and Priscilla Bartholomew.
Good morning. We don't have anything at the time.
Okay, thank you. Item number 2, compact licensure, Dr. Collada.
Yes, as you know, the compact is being formed. It is being operated by a government support and suggestion group out of Nashville. We have had several meetings. We are getting ready to have another one shortly. They are working on a set of proposed rules. It's one of the big sticking points apparently nationally is the CBC. Apparently all of the compacts are facing problems with criminal background checks. But they are, again, very diligently working on that. And I will, at this point, I think with the tailwind, we will not see the operationally in compact working until probably 2025. But that's just the nature of the beast, because technically we are still in the formation period. But again, the people who are working are pressing it hard, and we're all trying to get it done so that they can take the association can take it to its members and recognize, make sure they have any no suggestions or improvements that need to be made. And then they can start putting this thing out to the legislators and around the country to get it. And I think they've determined that they want 7 states before they can actually operationalize it. And so this all is being funded by the DOD, and they're looking for grant money to set up the operational computerized systems to exchange data. And that's where they are right now, rulemaking and that sort of stuff. So that's the latest update I can give you on that process.
Do you anticipate there will be licensure, the opening of licensures, to add things, take away things, doctor, for this?
In terms of what they do, they're going to have it's going to be what's called a privilege, and it depends upon how they define it. For some of the compacts that use privilege that currently exist, it is a compact privilege, which is equivalent to a license. Helps the states kind of operationalize it a little easier. But again, I don't think it'll be operational for us in Louisiana for probably till 2025 at the best. And, it's hopeful that the 2025 legislature will get a chance to see the law and act on the law. But again, I'll keep you posted when they get a law ready to go out.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody else have any questions on compact licensure? Item number 3, NBRC shortening licensing process.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to bring this up to you, all of you all, because when I was at the meeting in person and had time to work and talk to the executive director of the NBRC, we were talking about shortening the time to licensing, temporary licenses and things like that. And she brought it to my attention that now the NBRC does primary source verification of the transcript and graduation of and the programs of, so that they're all acceptable programs under the NBRC, so that when somebody takes the test, and also you need to know when they take the test, it's the same test, and the cut point determines do they get the full license or the what we usually call the other licensing level. And so it's the same test across the board. They are seeing a few problems with people who are not passing, but what's impressive to me is we have the opportunity with your support, since we're undertaking some rule changes, let's think about the opportunity to shorten the licensing time by saying we'll accept NBRC, no temporary permits. And then what will happen is as soon as they give us their NBRC, we don't have to go track down their transcript. We don't have to go verify their program. All of that's done by NBRC. We grant them a license depending on what their score was on the test, and they can go to work. So I just thought I'd put that out for you all to consider an opportunity to shorten the time to license the respiratory care people in the future by utilizing simply the NBRC credential.
Is there any costs associated with that?
Cost, it's actually would be a cost and time saving to the agency, but no, NBRC gives us that data, or the applicant can give us their certificate and we can verify it. But again, the whole deal is everybody has to take the NBRC test anyway. Yet that's what we've been requiring, the certification. And if they don't, if there's two levels, there's a cut point on the test, and you fail, you get the lower level, or you get the higher level, and that's it. And that's what we've been doing anyway. So again, we could eliminate the temporary licensing pending the test and all that kind of stuff. And it's up to you all if you want to do it. I think it would allow us to streamline the process and get a shorter time from from paid application to granting the license.
And for us to put that in place, Doctor, we'd have to change the rules and regs, or can you do that?
Well, I think I'll look at it, we'll take a look at, does the rule need to be changed, or is it just a procedural process? Because in essence, we would be verifying the transcript and the protocol through the NBRC instead of us. And I think that's the key, that I'm trying to make it easier. It's 2 less data points I've got to go collect and verify it just instead of 1. So it's just going to make it so much easier for us. And if you want me to start looking to operationalize it, I will start the process. We'll look at the legal side of it, and we'll look at the operational side of it, and we'll get it. And then we'll bring back to you at the next time what has to be done. Is it going to be a rule change, or is this going to be a policy procedural change?
Well, no, it's at a minimum, it's going to have to be a rule change, because currently to get a license, you have to be a graduate of a respiratory care education program or have successfully completed all program requirements established by the NBRC. So.
And NBRC would be doing the verification of the program.
Yeah, but the or is what you.
Yeah, I know. We'll have to, again, that's why I'm going to need Pat's advice. So we're going to do whatever Pat says, but I'll get all the details for you at the next time.
Yeah, I'd like to,
I believe the requirement is I'm sorry, my own. The
Yeah.
education requirement is, a high school education. I mean, you've got to have certification, but I mean, if you just got a high school education certification, you can go.
But for respiratory care, you can't sit an NBRC board exam unless you have an associate or Bachelor of Science degree in hand. There once was a time where an individual could complete a piece of the baccalaureate program and set their board exams, but that changed way back like in 2010. So, I mean, most of the, I'm going to say most, the NBRC approved schools cannot accept an individual that doesn't have a high school diploma. So that in it are GED and equivalent. So the high school diploma thing is taken care of. And that's probably one of the reasons we need to get together for the rules and regulations, is some of that language may be able to be changed based off of all the updating that's been done over the years.
That's right. That to reflect the current reality. And
Yeah.
the things that we detailed in the earlier rules happen as a matter of course now. So you're right.
Well, Dr. Van, I'd like you to move forward, investigating this and see what we have to do and report back to us at the next meeting, please.
Thank you. I'll be sure to get that done. One more thing for Pat and I to get together about. I always like to work with her.
All righty. We'll move on to temporary licensing.
I think we kind of discussed that. The goal would be with the NBRC, nobody would get temporary licenses. I think the key is that's always been a fraud, fraught with the potential for problems. So again, if they take the test and they get certain cut points, they get a certificate, one of the other certificates. If they fail it, they don't continue, they don't work. So I think that's just the thought, my recommendation to you. It would be a lot easier for us and a lot better for the public. So it's up to y'all if y'all want to do it when we discuss those rules.
I think, I mean, before we get there, I read over the Willis Knighton request, which is 2 down. And I understand what Mr. Miller is saying about RTs, and he put it in comparison to nursing, where a nursing is basically a board app. They get hired, they start orientation, they are side by side with a practicing nurse. They take their board exam. If they pass, they get a license. If they don't pass, they're bumped down to non-licensed personnel, which is back to the level of a certified nursing assistant. And Mr. Miller is asking if there's a way to do that with the RTs so that they could put them to work faster and they're not delayed. And again, we haven't got there to discuss it, but I'd hate to see the temporary license go away, because I think that's a way to
These people,
bridge this gap.
to be clear, I think you're conflating 2 separate issues, with all due respect, Ms. Diane.
Uh-huh.
The Willis Knighton request is, while they've taken their test, they're waiting for the grade, we can orient them. They're not going to have any patient responsibility. They're not going to be doing any independent practice. They're not going to be doing anything that would require a license anyway, but they're hired and being oriented by the organization to the policies and procedures of the organization, the internal HRs, and all of the stuff that has to be done. This is not a license. This is simply a period of orientation pending results of the NBRC.
But I hear what you're saying, but the thing here, no, they haven't taken the test, because Dr. Collada, as soon as I hit done and as soon as I hit submit, as long as it takes you to get out of your chair and walk to the other side of your door, there is a piece of paper waiting on you telling you pass or fail.
And again, that's fine with us, but sometimes people can't get to the location. The test is not, there's so many, if you fail it the first time, you have to repeat it within so many days, and if that kind of stuff. So again, I think the issue is we're going to say that you pass the test, you get one of the 2 licenses based upon the cut point, and then at that percent, they can go and they can work. They got a license, they can get hired and function. They would still, I think, have the opportunity to orient pending the test. But again, the issue is if they don't take the test and they don't pass, it's not a permit or a temporary permit to practice RT. It's simply an opportunity pending the results of the test whenever they take it. So again, I don't want to conflate temporary licensing with what Willis Knighton is trying to do.
Well, and again, only because I know the history here with the temporary license, and Willis Knighton was one of the first ones that said they would never hire anybody with the temp because they've been burned before, because the temporary was only good for 6 months. And they would hire somebody in on the temp. The person would fail the exam the first time, continue to work, and then would not go back and take it the second time. So then they wasted 6 months of time, energy, and effort on that individual only to have to let them go. So all I know is history of what was working supposedly with temporary, and then in the Shreveport-Bossier area, based off of what I saw with the hospitals, nobody would hire you with a temp. Go get your license and then come see me. And all of this was pre-COVID. And now we're back to post-COVID, still trying to get back on our feet again with, you know, the job market. So, and again, we can read through David's, Mr. Miller's request, and maybe I read it wrong, but, and I don't have a problem with getting rid of the temporary. I'm just telling you that getting rid of the temporary is going to hurt more institutions than it's going to help, from my point of view. And I'm speaking of a hospital point of view, trying to get individuals in, and I'm not speaking from the view of the LSBME, which is more work, time, energy, and effort to follow up on these people and chase these people and all that kind of stuff. But I've always been one, when I got through training, you go pass your board exam. If you can't pass, you don't need to be working. You can't pass, get your butt back into me and let's get this done. I'm kind of no nonsense on that. But I also have to sit and look at what the hospitals are thinking of. And Raymond probably can address that more than me because he's hiring on the other end. I was educating them.
I got a call from a director about a month ago. 2 applicants at their facility did not pass the exam after 4 attempts within the with the temporary license. So he wanted to know what could he do for those. Did the license vacate at that time? You know, and I sent him, you know, the rules and regs, you know, that they failed it 4 times, that temporary permit ceased right then and there. So he says, you know, I got to let them go. I said,
yeah,
you know, you have to. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, ma'am.
I sincerely apologize, but you do not have a quorum. The quorum is based on the number of statutory members, which is 10, and you need a majority. So you would have to have 6, and you only have 5 members present. As a practical matter, you can have discussions in this way because it's technically not a meeting, but you can't take any more action up to and including voting to go into executive session. So, and what we'll do is next month or next meeting, whether it's next week or next month or whenever, when we have a quorum, we'll ratify the minutes again, from the last meeting. That is my bad. I sincerely apologize. I was looking up something else while y'all were talking, and I sincerely apologize, but it doesn't go on the amount of members who are appointed and actually serving. It goes on the amount of members that the statute requires the committee to have.
Question. It is recorded in the minutes of this meeting, the discussion, correct?
Oh, yes. Well, this isn't a meeting, but this gathering and discussion session is currently being live streamed, so we can get a transcript of it and keep it for future discussions. But I wanted to interject before you decided to take any further action other than having just ratified the minutes.
Yeah, thank you.
All right,
Would
so
y'all like me to send a text out to Dr. Hugo? Because he did say he was going to be here. Just maybe he forgot.
Ms. Wilson?
If he joins
Certainly,
late,
if he hops on, then you can have your vote to go into executive session. But short of that, unfortunately, I do sincerely apologize, but we won't be able to.
okay, he sent an email that said running a little late, joining in 5 or 10 minutes, and this came at 9:09 a.m. Also,
Okay.
if he did like me, because I had to send Miss P. Long a thing to remind me of my password and all, which you don't have to get on Zoom, but you do need to have to be able to pick up the reference. He might have got sidelined with that. But he did say running a little late, hope to join here soon.
Okay. Do you have
And-
the capability to email him back and say, we're about to need you to be able to vote? If you can't come, we understand, but we just need to know.
He can call in, phone call in.
All right, while we wait for Dr. Hugo, do we want to continue with discussing the Willis Knighton, item? Can we do that, Ms. Wilton?
You can have a general discussion, you just can't make any decisions.
I say continue the discussion so we can
And
have
this is
more
their letter on the
information.
screen. So again, what Mr. Bartholomew is describing is not a temporary license function. I want to make sure. They are not temporarily licensed to work in this environment. They are applicants that are waiting to pass their test. And just so you'll know, Diana, nowadays, just like you get your grades when you walk out of the test, so do the nursing.
Oh, yeah.
So again, it would be similar. There's no temporary license involved in this.
Well, it's called, they call it RN apps. And again, RNs, okay. The graduates from an RT program, depending on when they graduate, usually can get a testing date, I would say within 7 to 10 days of graduation. Okay. No, we don't have a lot of places here in Shreveport, but it's never been a problem. It's never put anybody out. Nursing, if I understand them correctly, are sort of like PT. They have scheduled nursing exam times. You can't go anytime you want. So when they graduate, there is a time period in which they're waiting for that exam date. And so as an RN app, because they don't have their nursing credential, they are going and starting that orientation process. And then the board exam occurs, I'm going to say between 30 and 90 days after graduation. And don't quote me on that. I just know it's not, our guys can go on and sign up for it anytime they want to. Their guys cannot. So they're able to hire in from that graduating RN class, which there are several programs up in this area, and begin them on an orientation process all at the same time. Those nurses then go take that board exam. And at the time that they finish, they do get a passing score, and then they can convert to a professional license. Prior to that, it's not considered a professional license, but all their information is in place. All they're waiting for is the passing score. And again, if they don't pass, they get bumped back to a non-professional status. And for no better purpose, I'm going to call it a CNA. So they're still able to work bedside, but they're doing CNA opportunity job responsibilities and not an RN.
And that is exactly what he's saying in the paragraph that's I'm showing on the screen right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
go ahead, Raymond.
I'm sorry. You know, I've spoken to David Miller in length about this. We attended the state conference or whatever, and I told him, you know, I appreciated his comments, and Dr. Collada and I had spoke briefly about Mr. Miller's request. I think this
Sorry
is a
to
great
interrupt,
idea.
but Dr. Hugo is on the call now.
Thank you.
And,
Good morning,
you know, I
everyone.
think-
I apologize.
No, thank you, doctor.
Absolutely.
I think this is a great program to implement. You know, it give the students a little bit more before maybe they take their clinical, their national exam. Give them a little bit more clinical experience and focus on some areas that they, you know, may have opportunities to improve on. So I'm in support myself of David's recommendation.
But to do what David is asking us to do, would we not have to look at that as change in rules and regulations?
No, because they will not have a temporary license. They're not working. They're not responsible for patients. And if they don't pass the test, they are either released or they work, as he puts it very clearly, if they don't earn their NBRC credential and receive the LSBME license on or before release from orientation, this requirement is not met, the RT app will be transferred to a non-credential, non-licensed position.
So I have a question reading into this too on David's and some little background from myself. So little background from myself. We actually I'm doing this right now, not to this extent, but we have a new grad that's graduating, getting ready to take their test in a week or so. And we went ahead and the facility, we were able to bring them in and hire them. But what we're doing is kind of something we're doing, no patient care. But I've got a week or so of just solid, nothing but equipment, health stream, just general hospital orientation, not even patient care related to it. So I think it falls back on the facility then. So if this person does not do their test and doesn't do their health, then of course they're going to be eliminated out of our services. And what we was doing, like I said, is basically no patient care at all. We were just doing all of the regular orientation, hospital-wide stuff. But it looks like Dave is asking for some hands-on, but that's my question. So that would be treated kind of like a student and a preceptor then with the, with the rules and regs cover that patient while they're still in the facility doing that or not. That's my caveat to the question. I'm just trying to understand that one a little deeper.
Yeah, that's kind of my concern as well, because as we'll get into discussion later, what the rules and law currently provide for, if this person is just shadowing and only not performing any of the functions of what we call respiratory therapy in the rules, I mean, sure, they can do that. But if they are actually practicing respiratory therapy, they either have to have a license, a work permit, or a temporary license, I mean.
Kind of the way I interpret it myself, and that's what we do. So we're just bringing them in, and it's non-respiratory therapy. It's just all basic orientation, computer training, all of that type of stuff. And it does help us because we can get them in faster and whatnot instead of having to wait on the students graduating.
Ms. Wilton, you are correct. He said under the direct supervision of the RT educator or the RT preceptor, they would be assigned to patient care tasks through areas of the hospital. And by the end of the and again, I used to orient in the hospital. Part of that is hands-on. And that's why I said I felt like that temporary license or work permit or something would need to be still in place.
Sheila?
So I have a question for Brett. So Brett, during this orientation period, you are paying them. They're getting paid.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're getting paid. And actually this one comes up, because they got them hired in the system. They didn't have the actual pay rate put to them. Yes. Next week. So like I said, that's what's great about it. Once the results of that, once they take the test, fast forward. We'll go back in and backlog for the pay scale to see on TV.
Yeah. So basically, it's saving you time in getting them into a patient care role once they pass the exam. They're already done with their orientation.
Well, a good piece of it and whatnot.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what is the difference between this and forgive me, I'm a lawyer, not any kind of medical person at all. What is the difference between what Willis Knighton is proposing and just like a student internship or something? I mean, if this is actually them going into the hospital and doing patient care, even though directly supervised as a student, how is that different?
Tom,
Go ahead, Mike.
I think it reduces the time element of credentialing, of processing the new applicant. But correct me if I'm wrong, our current standards set minimum standards. And looking at what is being proposed by Mr. Miller, I don't think that's minimum standard. I think it takes it up a notch. Am I correct or wrong?
It, just an observation. If they are functioning, to answer Patricia's question, if they are functioning as a student, intern, or something like to that effect, the only difference is they're being paid. They're not, and the only time we ever allowed them to be paid was we waived that regulation during COVID because it was a need to have so many warm bodies that the services just didn't have.
Right.
What
So-
he is talking about is not what he told me initially. And that's why I wanted the letter on here, because he said that they would not be responsible for patient care. Now, it seems that that sentence, under the direct supervision, the new employee is assigned patient care tasks through all areas of the hospital. So again, if we respond to his letter, we have to clarify what he said, or we have to tell him what we expect that to mean. But the issue here is, again, and that's why I'm saying this is not intended to be a temporary license. When I talked to him, these were people who could not, in other words, they have a lot, there's a longer time to understanding, utilizing the computer systems, understanding how to document nowadays that is different than it used to be. Because now everybody's using computerized medical records. And I think that's one of the things they have to orient them to, as well as the other HR reasons and other actions of the hospital and how it functions and all of those things that they need to learn. It was my understanding from talking to him that they would not be responsible for patient care. They might work and watch and see, but they would not. And I think the way we've seen this interpreted just by us today, that needs to be clarified. But again, this is not intended to be a temporary permit. That's what he was telling me. So again, I don't want to conflate the two. If we want to keep temporary permits, that's fine. If you want to do this, you don't need to have a temporary permit. We just need to clarify. And we could issue this one, I think, and Patricia can give us legal advice later on. We can clarify this by putting out a statement of position in response, or one of our other options to give any answers to public so they can see what we're doing. And I think the key here is just clarify this one statement about the new employees assigned patient care tasks, and what that means, and the rest of this functions so that they would not really be licensed or need a license to do it until they had their license.
Yeah, and if I were them, I would tell them not to call it an RT app position. They would have to call it something that doesn't imply that this person is actually performing respiratory therapy functions.
Can the board request that Mr. Miller clarify his statement in that last two sentences?
Yes.
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, it would be helpful if he would give us the exhaustive list of tasks that they will have knowledge, proficiency, and competency in, because I have a feeling that's going to be a lot of stuff that we require a license for.
Okay.
And Ms. Wilton, some of the professions are, you were asking what's the difference in what he's proposing and what a student still in school would be doing. And again, I'm going to tell you just from reading the letter, I don't think there was a difference. And again, which is why I think a license needed to be in place. Some professions allow a student to choose their last clinical rotation before they graduate. And sometimes that happens to be the place that they're going to be employed. And if you're lucky enough that you can do that, some of that orientation and training could go on as a student because you're there performing, your student things. But we used to have what we called a clinical externship for the summer. And then the state came in and said, you got to get down to 120 hours for a BS degree. So we had to get rid of that. But there are other programs out there that allow students to pick an externship, and usually the last one that they pick is a place of employment where they hope to work. So you get a student in training who is also getting some orientation to their future workplace. And
Right.
that marries up very well. It's just, it's not happening in the RT profession.
Understood. Well, and then the other issue that I just have as a personal matter is the whole justification for this is that it takes 6 to 8 weeks or longer to get an RT license. I don't know that that's technically correct. And so if it is, then, you know, okay, but to base it on the, I mean, to base it on the fact that it's something about the board process that's slowing it down, I'm not sure I want to buy into that, because I don't think that's the case.
Well, and again, when he says, and reading the letter, and I cannot say that this is true, but he says 6 to 8 weeks, and that's waiting on the LSBME, not on test scores.
Right.
Now, and we did have a discussion earlier that a lot of that we thought was due to the fingerprint process. And when do they start that process?
Right.
And I'm not involved in that anymore on a student aspect. But when I had my students, we started that process about 8 weeks before they graduated. So that wouldn't be a holdup.
Right.
But
well,
I
would just like to flesh that out a little bit more, because I don't think necessarily carving out a way for students to get paid prior to licensure I'm agnostic on whether that's good or bad, but I to overhaul the rules to create this for this group, I'm not sure, especially if it's based on the argument that it's the board process that's causing them trouble. That, you know, I believe there probably is a great deal of orientation that can be done, and maybe the tiniest bit of clinical, and when I say practice, I don't mean practice of medicine, but practice of a clinical nature. But the exhaustive list of tasks of patient care that they're going to do during that 6 to 8 weeks makes me nervous.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well,
There's
if
a
the board.
lot of, as I said, there's
Go
a
ahead,
lot
Brett.
of pieces too into the the hiring piece that he could be incorporating in there to that time frame. I know in that particular facility, we only do hospital orientation twice a month, so it's every other Monday. So if you miss that window, then they could add an additional 2 weeks before they could even come into the hospital, orientation process. So that could be some of that time frame kicked in there as well. I don't know, just throwing it out there from our side of it.
And I want to throw something back about the time to licensing. Okay, number one, I think he's looking at historical data. There's no doubt that in the last 6 months, we have really shortened the time for the criminal background checks to where it's actually taking anywhere from 5 to 7 days from the time they get their fingerprints. Our problem is we view that it's the burden of the applicant to provide us with the information. And what we're trying to do is tell you that once they give us all the information, our time is 10 days. Once we get all the information, we're granting a license within 10 days. The problem is we have applicants that start an application, don't pay. Then we don't do anything. 3 months later into the process, they pay, but they haven't sent us what we need. Then we start sending them monthly emails. And Ms. Phyllis and the ladies in licensing, most of that is computerized, but they send them regularly these information about what is needed to complete the application. One of the problems is getting the transcript, verifying the school. We're going to want to propose to shorten that. But if they don't give us the information, we can't do anything, which is why if we take the NBRC, that subsumes. They could not take it unless they graduated and was an approved program. And that's 2 steps we don't have to verify. We don't have to track down a transcript and get it sent properly, because sometimes they send us the transcript that they have, and that's not acceptable. And we have to get it, in a sealed envelope from the bursar or the school itself. So again, we're trying to make it easier. But if we're going to have to do a temporary license, then I'm still have to do that to grant them the license, because I have to verify their education. And that's why I'm saying I think this really is one or the other. And if you do away with the temporary license, and it's as easy as Diana tells us to get the test, then there really should be no problem at all, but I'll let Ms. Wilton comment on it.
Dr. Van, is this something that could be a topic of discussion with the MBRC, the RT app, when you meet with?
I can certainly talk to my counterpart over there. She's certainly gonna tell me. I'll find out what.
Yeah, that would be
do.
good information to bring back. What you
Ms.
think, Diane?
Wilton?
I just had one more question just to help me understand. How does this individual that he's posturing, how does this position not already exist either in a temporary license or a work permit?
Again, what I understood him to propose in the phone, which is different in his letter, was there would be no patient care responsibilities, okay?
Okay.
And that's the difference here that we gotta sort out, and I think that's why we gotta talk to him and tell him that we can't allow them to have patient care tasks is to be assigned to them. They have to be able to observe, but not perform.
But if we held the line on that, then the scenario he sets up is already covered in our rules, either by a work permit or a temporary license, correct?
Correct, but
Okay.
again, I'm proposing to
very
do
good.
away with the temporary license so that we can expedite the process
Yeah,
of
yeah.
getting them their license.
No, I totally get that. I'm just making sure that I'm just for my own thought process that I understand.
Right.
Okay,
Miss-
very good.
And Miss Wilton, again, I am not throwing the LSBME under the bus, okay? I'm not throwing them under the bus, but your question was what makes the difference? And the only thing I'm gonna go back is after I reread it again, he's saying even if they tried to get a work permit, it could be 6 to 8 weeks before they got turned around. So I think what they're, now that I go back and read this, and again, I'm not saying it's true, but when I'm reading it, what I'm reading is the holdup may not necessarily be the student taking the test. It's trying to get the license in hand. And I do agree with Dr. Collada. There's a lot of parts and pieces that have to come into play before that license is granted. And Raymond and I have both, have been called before only to find out that the person that was requesting the license hasn't done what they've been asked to do when we followed up with Dr. Collada. So I don't know. I mean, I understand him wanting to put an individual to work, but if they can't get their stuff turned in a timely manner, then, that's no fault of ours. And that may not necessarily make a good employee either, but I digress.
So Dr. Van, will you and Ms. Wilton get further clarification from Mr. Miller on what his
Oh, absolutely.
expectation?
Happy to do that. Happy to do that.
All right, is there any more discussion on the Willis Knighton? All right, we have future upcoming meetings, which will be August 5th and November the 18th. Is there any other new business anybody would like to discuss?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you now with Dr. Hugo on the line, can you ask for a motion to approve the minutes again, since you now have a quorum?
Yes, ma'am. Do we go through the whole process again, Ms. Wilton?
Yeah,
Or just a vote?
just somebody move, move to approve the
Okay.
minutes.
Make a
We have a
motion.
motion. Brett has made a
Second.
motion, second by
Approved.
Mike. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion
Thank you.
carries.
Sorry for the technicality.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, I'd like to have a motion for us to move into executive session.
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Sheila. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, just give me a second to move y'all over.
Just send if you can let me know when we're back streaming.
We are streaming now.
All
Not
right.
everybody's back yet. Wait, just 1 second. We don't have your quorum yet. There you go.
All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Brett, do I have a second? Second, Sheila. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Dr. Hugo.
Motion to adjourn?
Yep.
Aye. Absolutely. And happy Mother's Day to our mothers in the chat. I don't know if you had already said that, but just want to
Thank
give
you.
a shout out to our moms.
Thank you all.
Yeah. And Raymond, you gotta let us know what kind of camera you're using. That's some 8K picture right